Hey, deserving listeners, 90-Day Fiancé. My name is Dr. Kirk Honda. I'm a therapist and a professor. This is the Psychology in Seattle YouTube channel. As I always say, everything I say in reaction to these shows is completely speculative, based on just a little information. Keep that in mind. Let's watch.
Oh, this is pretty easy. Wow.
Fresh, feeling fine, feeling so good, I'm shining.
Wow, this is nice. So after our big fight, Liz and we've done quite a bit of serious work on a relationship, and we're going to therapy to help get us back to where we used to be. Hello.
Bye.
Okay.
Okay.
So go ahead. Hello. Good morning. A big part of building, that love and trust is intimacy, which, we've kind of left behind because we've been fighting a lot. So I'm excited. I ordered a massage table with...
All right, so never mind what you think about this relationship or this couple or these individuals, but it is a good idea that when we are fighting or having difficulties in a relationship, intimate, romantic relationship, that we do everything we can. And one of the things that we can do is to increase the intimacy, the warmth, the affection between each other, because sometimes that's all that's needed from doing something like this, or even just hugging someone or kissing someone, holding a hand. When I see people in my office, couples holding hands or putting hands on shoulders or on thighs or even just sitting next to each other, it's a good sign. It's a strength. It means that they're open still, that they value that they still have that chemistry, if you will, that feeling, that they're willing to open themselves up. They're willing to bond in that way. They might need it, so they might actually reach out to hold hands because they want that closeness. And I always see couples who, when they do that, they are able to regulate more their emotions. A big part of our problem in conflict is our unnoticed distress level. Most of us have really no idea how distressed we are. We tend to only notice it when it's like at a 8, 9, or 10. Some people only notice it when it's a 10, and even then they'll frame it differently. They're just like, I'm not upset, I'm not angry, I'm not distressed, I'm just like, I don't understand you. They'll intellectualize it or something. So, but even on a good day for people that are raised pretty healthily, when we're a 2, 3, 4, 5 people, especially in the moment, we have a really hard time noticing it, even though our body is completely freaking out. And so it's important to do what we can to, one, notice that, but also, even if we don't notice it, to assume that it's happening and to do what we can to lower that through relaxation and also through physical touch, whether it's your pets or your person or a friend or something, or ourselves. Sometimes you'll even see people will do stuff like this. I noticed that when people start to groom themselves, it's because they're trying to relax. They're trying to soothe themselves. They're trying to be their own mother, essentially, and stroking their hair. And you're okay. And that can work too, as well. That's fine. Obviously, if we can do it with our partners, that's when we're having some tension. So they are engaging in that, which is good. And the other thing I'll emphasize here is that when we don't do that and we're in a conflict and we are saying, we have our position, we're like, I need them to understand this, and I need them to listen to me, I need them to know what they did that was wrong, I need them to apologize or something like that. And I will see people, and I've experienced this myself, that when there is physical affection, smile, hugging, if you can kind of get to that place, which sometimes that's unachievable given one's anger or trauma or something. But if you can do that after the bonding, distress comes down, oxytocin kicks in, bonding kicks in, sometimes the conflict, your original position that they must listen, they must apologize, these kinds of things, sometimes it'll completely go away. Like your mindset changes because you feel differently. You feel different about the relationship and you're in a different mood. You have a different orientation towards your partner. But at the very least, it'll mitigate that anger and thus make it easy for us to differentiate and assert ourselves in a way that takes into account everyone's feelings. You can be more tentative, less accusatory, more giving the other person benefit of the doubt. A big part of conflict resolution is assuming that you do not have a monopoly on objective reality. All of us do this. I do it too. When we get into a fight with our partner and we're mulling it over, like there's some separation, we're thinking about it, we might be talking about it with our friends or, just sort of mulling it over. We are so convinced of ourselves that our position is right, that our emphasis on things are the right amount of emphasis. If anything, we should be more upset, but we're all like that. Everyone is like, none of us are objective in that situation. We like to think of ourselves as objective observers of reality. The thing I like to say is the thing that judges objective reality, the thing that judges reality and perceives it and processes it, is a gelatinous goo between your ears. Have you ever seen a brain? It's doing a wonderful job at a lot of things. I mean, there are so many things that the brain is doing that is just miraculous, really. But being able to gauge objective reality in a differentiated way constantly is not one of the functions that we evolved to possess. Plus, it'd be really hard to do that. We evolved to think emotionally, to process emotionally, to narrativize emotionally, to have all these hormones and distresses and cortisol and, dopamine and serotonin, and, all these things are happening, and the way our brain is wired, our processes, our mood, our diet, the exercise, everything's and you should just always appreciate that. That at any given moment, you don't know crap, We're all Jon Snow and we know nothing.
With essential oils, we're gonna massage each other. And
now, having said that, I'm not saying that you should second guess yourself and gaslight yourself. Okay, so there's something there, and continue to explore it, continue to assert it. Some of you have the opposite problem, where you assume everything that you think and do is always wrong because of the way you were treated. So, case by case basis.
Hopefully end up, in bed again. Liz has a freaky side. It gets the engines a revving. Okay. Liz is a strong, independent, beautiful, wonderful woman. I've never felt like this for anybody. Here we go. Oh, yeah.
They play literal porn music. And you wonder, as a musician myself, you just wonder about the session musicians that are asked to write and record, just like create, make a song that sounds like quintessential porn music. And so like, okay, well, it's got to be kind of a slow jam. It always has like that, it's that 70s. Let's listen to this.
No, we actually have
Yeah, you've got to have a pretty good bass line. I would say this jam is actually pretty generic and boring, but, it's in the right ballpark.
a lot of nerves in our buttocks. Baby, is that you making noises or the dog?
You're rubbing.
Yeah, as far as porn jams go, that was pretty uneventful. But, you're probably not getting paid that much to write that jingle that can be used by a TV show, and the TV show probably doesn't want to pay that much money. They should have had some Barry White in there. There's some good jams by the Commodores, Isaac Hayes, Rick James, these anyway.
This episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. Unfortunately, life doesn't come with a user manual. Navigating all the various challenges we face can make you feel unsure or stuck in place. Whether it's a relationship, or going through grief, or considering a new career. And, generally speaking, a therapist can really help with that. By helping you to explore your feelings, and by giving you the space to clarify what you want to do. In my life, I can't imagine where I'd be without the therapy I've had. During some of the biggest moments of my life, therapists have been there for me. To slow me down, to listen to me, to help me explore. Well, that's where BetterHelp comes in. As the world's largest therapy service, BetterHelp has matched 3 million people with professionally licensed and vetted therapists available 100% online. Plus, it's affordable. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to match with a therapist. If things aren't clicking, you can easily switch to a new therapist anytime. It couldn't be simpler. No waiting rooms, no traffic, no endless searching for the right therapist. Learn more and save 10% off your first month at betterhelp.com/Kirk. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/Kirk.
Really good.
Yeah.
You get a sticker.
When things are good between Ed and I, it's amazing.
This is kind of how we normally are, whether it's us in the living room, in the jacuzzi.
Yeah, I'm actually kind of glad they're showing this. I'm guessing most people don't really care, but to me, when we only see the negative side, then it's hard to imagine why people are in their relationship to begin with. And I'm always thinking that, or I'm frequently thinking this, and sometimes I'll mention this, it's like, well, we don't really know what's going on behind the scenes off camera or what they're leaving on the editing floor. There's a possibility that there's a lot of really good moments. I mean, think about your own relationship. Think about, if you're in a long-term relationship, say it's 5 years or something, and think about the big fights you've had in the past 2 years. And, really think about what it looked like from the outside if it were to be filmed. Especially if in the moment as you're fighting with your partner, maybe there's yelling, maybe there's name calling, stomping around, slamming doors. If producers are there encouraging you to interact more, right? And you know that the paycheck or whatever kind of depends on you following their directives, you could imagine the conflict being even bigger. This is the case, I think, for Natalie and Josh. When Josh was leaving and saying goodbye because he had to work, he had to fly somewhere for work, and Natalie was, I'm just going to say it, she was pouting. That's not a mocking word. I mean, I don't know any other word to say it. And she was on the bed, and Josh was trying to be nice and trying to say goodbye and have things be okay, and she was pouting and doing her thing. And it looked like if the producers weren't there, it just would have been more pouting and more that kind of style. Josh would be like, well, okay, and he would have left. But it looked to me like the producers actually encouraged Natalie to come into this other room and talk with Josh. And you even kind of see this look on Natalie's face that, I don't know if I'm just reading into it, but she's like, okay, I'm coming into the room now. And, she has this smile on her face and this mocking, sarcastic smile. I don't know if I'm just seeing things, but then the fight really took off. And then Natalie really was being pretty awful towards him, blaming him for all sorts of things like, I came into this country and I don't have a job and it's all your fault, that kind of thing. So we could imagine that if producers were there during our worst moments and they were pushing us together, things would get pretty gnarly. And so if people only saw that from the outside, they would say, why are those two people together? Well, we would know that if it is a good relationship, we'd say, well, you're not seeing 99% of the relationship. The neutral times, the good times, the intimate times, the happy times, the fun times, the bonding times, the affectionate times. It counterbalances those bad moments. Those bad moments are bad. And really, all of us are like this, right? All good relationships are like this. I don't know, you've heard me talk about this with this relationship. And so I'm not framing this as a good relationship. Ed has some pretty unfortunate qualities when he reacts, and he's willing to go to therapy, he's willing to look at it, but I don't know if he fully grasps his distorted perceptions and his way of reacting to attachment disruptions. He doesn't seem to, but it takes a long time to learn that in therapy, so I just have to trust that they're going to work on that, or they are working on that. I don't know. But all of us have this, right? That we all have ongoing problems, and we use this as a jumping off point. So let me tell you, and research shows this, John Gottman and colleagues found this to be true, and I find it to be true both professionally and personally, that the best relationships in the world, the majority of the conflicts, or a good number of the conflicts that you'll have with your partner, will never be resolved. Something like the best relationships that stay together, high marital satisfaction, something like 60% of conflicts never get resolved, or something like that. And so it is counterintuitive, because to the culture and to the rom-coms and to what the general wisdom is about this is that good relationships always resolve their conflict. Well, one, there's a myth out there that good relationships never have conflict, which is just ridiculous. The closer you are, the more likely there's going to be conflict. The more you depend on each other, the more likely there's going to be conflict. And especially if you have relational traumas from the past and from each other, the longer you're with someone, the more relational traumas you'll have from that person that will really stick with you. Anyway, so a lot of our conflicts have to do with ongoing personality differences and our own relational traumas that are being triggered and misunderstood or whatever, or our ways of dealing with things. One person, when they are sad or hurt by their partner, they retreat and they shut down. The other person pursues, and they'll look at each other in very different ways. The pursuer will be like, I can't believe you're rejecting me. And the shutting down person will be like, I can't believe you're invading me. Whereas the pursuer is like, I'm trying to preserve our relationship. And the shutting down person is like, I'm trying to preserve the relationship. So it's this fundamental misunderstanding of the way each person deals with distance and pain. That's the foundation of all my work, honestly, to some extent. Well, maybe to a large extent. Anyway, point is that when we have ongoing conflicts, it's sometimes tempting to believe that we're doomed, or that, well, there's a lot of problems with the way we see things. One is that we'll assume we're doomed, which isn't necessarily true, obviously. The other is that, well, certainly this will get better. And I'm here to tell you, probably not. Whatever conflicts you've had with your partner, and I tell this to my couples, what I say is the conflicts and the annoyances was probably a better term, because you don't necessarily have to have conflict about what annoys you about your partner. Those things that you have cataloged, those 3 bullet points that annoy you about your partner, that will always annoy you. Okay? How do you deal with it? How do you narrativize it is the point, And so because we have this culture that assumes that you're supposed to address those things, or that means that the person isn't good for you, or that there is a way to resolve that. Because there's that myth out there of just like, well, good couples, they resolve their problems. And because of that myth, people will continue to try to change each other, continue to try to make things perfect, which doesn't exist, and cause more conflict. Now, I'm not saying you're supposed to just give up and deal with what annoys you about your partner. It really kind of depends on the case-by-case basis. What he does to her, in my opinion, she should not just say, well, that is how it is. She should definitely assert herself and say, like, you can't see things constantly through your distorted, insecure, jealous lens and attack me in this super arrogant, aggressive way where you're putting me down. That's not okay. But what might be something that she would have to deal with for the rest of his life if he got a ton of therapy is that he is a jealous person, that he's going to get triggered. And he could obviously come to her when he's jealous in a more functional way, right? He could just say, you've heard me role play all that before. And so she could in that moment say, like, I can't believe he's still getting jealous. He's always, he comes at me in a good way, but like, we need to, hey, Ed, stop having your traumas and stop it. He could go through 20 years of therapy and still occasionally have that happen to him. So it's that difference, right? It's not that you should deal with the way your partner comes at you, but you should get used to the fact that your partner is going to have things that are going to bother you, are going to get in the way, are going to trip you up as a couple. And so maybe a lot of the couples on the show, including this couple, if we were in the relationship, we would see the gestalt, we would see the holistic relationship, and we would identify the conflicts as a problem. But when you take it all in, maybe it's worth sticking it out. A lot of people are attacking Liz for staying with him, and we just don't know what it's really like to be in the relationship. Now, I've also said this before, that there's a good chance that Liz has had a lifetime of abuse. There's pretty good evidence of that, not only in her childhood, in her family, mistreatment at the very least, and her previous relationships she's identified as being abusive. I don't know if both of them were, but at least one of them was, right? And so this relationship might be the least abusive relationship she's ever been in, but it's still abusive, right? So she might not really know what she deserves, and this might be kind of normalized to her. There's also a bit of projective identification. Listen to my episodes on that, where we will actually engage in relationships that are repetitively difficult for us because we're trying to unconsciously work something out. There's a lot of different reasons why we use projective identification to shoot ourselves in the foot. If you have repetitive relationships that all kind of look similar, there's a theme, like everyone I have had a long-term relationship, they always have this quality that they make me feel this way. You might want to obviously engage in therapy with someone that understands projective identification and listen to my episodes on that topic, because it does provide a model for understanding why that happens and a direction for awareness and healing corrective experiences. Anyway, so yeah, porn music, affection, intimacy, your partner is always going to annoy you in a certain way, to summarize. All right, well, we're coming up on the holiday season, so if you want to get some merch for a special someone, there's a link below. Also, Cameo, that's a holiday season kind of thing too, depending. And everyone out there, please take care of yourself because you deserve it. You really, really do.